Hi, welcome for RTL online trainings and placements exclusively for Oracle Fusion Cloud, Finance, Supply Chain Management, Human Capital Management, and Fusion Technical with integrations. So please subscribe to our channel in case if somebody is not subscribed, and please try to share this channel to reach more Oracle professionals across the world. And this particular session, I'm going to explain what are the different types of users we have in Fusion applications and where we will be using. Because sometimes we'll create a user account in Security Console. Sometimes we'll hire employee and we'll create a user account in Human Capital Management. Sometimes we'll create a user account directly in Manage Users tab. Like that, we will have different user accounts, right? So I'm going to explain what are that different accounts we have. So when it comes for Fusion applications, we know that it is RBAC, role-based access control. Based on the role, user can access the product. Okay. So whenever client, let's say our client is Xerox Corporation, they have the business across the world in multiple countries, let's say US, UK, India, different countries, and let's say they have some 50,000 employees. Out of 50,000 employees, 10,000 employees are using this Fusion product. There are clerks, there are cashiers, there are analysts, there are buyers, there are sales reps, and also our IT team is going to be using. Okay, so there depends on the requirement, the product will be used by the users. Okay, so now whenever we are implementing Fusion applications to the client, mainly we will find three types of users. First, we can categorize only two types. One is implementation user, another one is transactional user, or we can call it as an employee user also. Employee user. Who are the implementation users? Implementation users are nothing but our IT consultants, whether it is a functional consultant or technical consultant or administration department. So mainly IT consultant. For example, your client has purchased Oracle Fusion product license from Oracle Corporation, and they given the project for, let's say they given the project for TCS. Okay, so TCS team, both functional consultant and technical consultants are going to be the implementation users. We are the implementation user. We are going to implement the product to the client. Where do we create this implementation users? We will directly go to Security Console and we'll go for create a user account over there, and we'll give the roles to the users, whatever is required. Like implementation roles, if required, we'll give it application implementation consultant, and we will also provide IT security manager if required. Okay, then transactional user. What is meant by transactional user? Nothing but employee user. This is for this 10,000 employees, your client employees. So whoever is using this, because your client is having 50,000 employees, we don't need username and password for all 50,000 employees. Client is telling that only 10,000 employees, or let's say 5,000 employees are using this product, and they are going to log in and they try to hire employees, terminate employees, create invoices, making the payments, and create bank transfers, bank accounts, and create sales orders, RFQs, purchase orders, items receiving, like this type of things they are doing it. Okay, so this 5,000 users, will call them as a employee users. We'll call it as a transactional user. They will be performing the transactions day to day, whatever business transactions are required, that they are going to perform it. Okay, so there are transactional users, again two types. One is HCM user, non-HCM user. Non-HCM user. What is this HCM user and non-HCM user? If client has implemented human capital management, no problem. You can hire employees and then you can go for create a user account. HCM is nothing but human capital management. We know that Fusion is a ERP product. There will be a finance, mainly supply chain management, human capital management, CRM, PPM, ORC, then GRC, and then we have the public sector, a lot of health sector, revenue management, lot of domains we have. Mainly, most of the clients will be using top three: finance, supply, and human capital management. For example, your client has implemented human capital management, there won't be any problem because you are maintaining all 50,000 employees information. Out of 50,000 employees, client is telling create a username and password for 5,000 employees. Okay, they will be able to log in and they'll try to perform the transactions. Okay, nowadays some clients are telling that we need account for even 50,000 employees also, because all our employees wants to check their pay slips in online. Okay, definitely we need to provide the access, right? Minimum access we have to provide. So it's up to the client how many users they want. So if the client is having human capital management subscription, then we can have all the employees and we can go for create a user account. That is a HCM user account. For example, your client is using Fusion software, Fusion ERP product, but they have implemented only finance, or they implemented only finance and supply chain management. They have not used HCM. Maybe they are using some other software to maintain their employees' information. They might have done some integration. So here, so non-HCM users we have to create. So client is not having human capital management, but still you are supposed to maintain the users' data, right? Employees and users' data. That's why we will go with the non-HCM user. Okay, and they can go for login and perform the transactions in finance and supply chain management. I'm going to show you how to create an implementation user first and how to add the implementation roles. Then I'm going to show you how to perform the transactional users, both HCM user and non-HCM user. I'm going to do it. Okay, so let's log into the applications here. Now I'm going to show you implementation user. Let's go to navigator, go to tools menu and go for security console. Security console is an environment where we are going to create our implementation user account. Let's go to security console here. Go to users tab here, add user account. And I'm going to mention that here IMPL user, implementation user. We can say first name as IMPL, last name as user, IMPL.user, first name dot last name. Enter the password here. And whatever the roles you would like to go for add, you can go for add it here. I'm going to add IT security manager role so that you can access security console and you can manage users and roles information. Application implementation consultant I'm going to use. Application implementation consultant. 2 implementation roles I have added. That's it. This is how I will go for create implementation user account. So for example, when you are working in the project and your team member, team leader or project manager or client has given some username and they have asked you, how will you find whether this is a implementation user or not? Okay. So the moment when you search for an user and go to user account, you don't find any information here related to the employees. Nothing but your employee number, employee name, and then which business unit or which job you hired this employee. We don't have any employee information. So he's just a software engineer, admin indirectly, admin. He's going to do the setups. That's all. Okay. So this is how we can go for create a implementation user. The moment whenever he log into the applications, he can perform the activities like this. Now, if you go to navigator and try to access self information also, we don't find here. This is first one, how to create or how to find implementation user. Next, we are going to talk about transactional user. First, we'll discuss how to create non-HCM user. Nothing but other than the HCM, if your client is using other domains, how we can go for hire employee and create a user account. It's going to be very simple. We have to go to setup and maintenance. Let's say your client is implementing only financials. Then what we have to do? We have to go to the financials. You don't find all these offerings in case if your client has subscribed only for financials. When you are working in the project, you will find only financials here. You don't find some other product management or supply chain management or human capital management. This. Now we have to go to the task here, manage users. Now go to the task here, manage users. Whenever we go for manage users, now it's going to ask us, create a person first. Nothing but create an employee first and then create a user account for that employee. That's all. So I'm going to mention the employee name is Rajan Bhatnagar, his employee name, and email ID. You can have any sample email ID. When we have hired this employee. And here, which username you would like to go for set for this employee. So I'm going to mention that it's Rajan. And in case if your user account is already created, for example, you have already created one user account. For example, just now we did, right? Implementation user, you can link up that. You can link for existing user account. If not, if already there, you can go for link an existing user that you can search here. For example, implementation user. Just now we did that. We can go for search and go for assign it. This. Okay. So now I don't want to link with the existing one. I want to go ahead with the new user. So what we are doing here is we are going to hire employee here. Means we are maintaining employee information and we are going to set some username here. And whether he is an employee or consultant or contract employee, retired employee, or is just volunteer, what type of employee, we are going to say that he is a permanent employee. Then two fields are mandatory. For which legal employer he is an employee and for which business unit he is an employee. In our language, if we speak, legal employer is nothing but a company name. Business unit is nothing but a branch. So obviously, some X person is working, means indirectly we will ask which company you are working. Second question, which branch you are working, right? In fusion applications, company is nothing but a legal employer and business unit is nothing but a branch. That's what. So I'm going to select US1 legal entity, legal employer and US1 business unit. If you are going to mention that he is working for so-and-so job, you can also mention that he is a finance consultant, finance analyst or something. We can choose that also. Maybe he is working for so-and-so department. But these all are optional. Only two things are mandatory. If you look at here, legal employer and business unit is mandatory. Remaining all are optional. Okay. Now that's it. Save and close. This is how we can go for create a non-HCM user. Indirectly employee user. We did employee and we give an username also. System is going to create a first employee. For that employee, it's going to create a user account. Indirectly, system is mentioning that he's working for so-and-so legal employer and so-and-so business unit. We can also search here employee information. Further, next level, if you want to go for make some changes, you can do it from here also. Okay. Now we'll see the user account is created or not. Where do we find security console? Go to security console. We need to search for username. We can go for reset the password. Excuse me. So the moment when you select username, you can see that right now, right side, associated worker information. What is this employee number, employee name, which job, which business unit, which department. This all information is coming. Indirectly, this user is an employee. He is an employee in the legal entity and he is working for so-and-so BU, so-and-so job. This is what we will call it as a transactional user. But we cannot find whether he is a HCM user or non-HCM user from here. From here, we cannot find. From here, we can find, okay, he is a transactional user. Indirectly, he is an employee user. The moment when employee log into the applications, he can perform the transactions. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Let me reset the password here. Let me add the basic role, employee role, and I'm going to attach employee role so he can access the self information. Self in the sense, his personal details, manager, he can access the pay slips, he can apply for a leave, and he can attend for some trainings. He can update his health details. He can update his certification details, this all. Okay. So I'm just going to show you. Now you can find personal information, this all things you can find. So this is how we can go for perform the transactional user, non-HCM. Now, in case if your client is using human capital management, now we can hire employee in human capital management and we can create user account. So if the client is having subscription for HCM while hiring employee, lot of options, lot of features will come. Here also they have given to hire employee. Just now we have done it, but only few things. Okay, which company, which business unit, which department, job, manager. That's all. Not more than that information. But if it is a human capital management, you can maintain his identification details, employment information, personal address, home address, email IDs, phone numbers, contacts information, educational information, payroll information, time and labor information, time sheet, leaves, leave plans, a lot of options will be there. Now I'm going to show you. Okay, so whenever you want to hire an employee, you should have the access to the user human resource specialist. Let me log into the applications. Now Rajan user is not having an access for that. So now if you have a role called human resource specialist role, then you can go for hire employee in human capital management. Okay, now go to navigator here. And the moment whenever you go for my client groups, here you can find new person. Hire an employee. We can maintain pending workers, contract workers like this. So I'm going to choose same thing. When you are hiring non-HCM user also, it has asked two fields, legal employer and as well as the business unit. But here it is asking the first name, last name, and other information, date of birth. What is the national identification details? Maximum options we can go for allow. Here it is. It will allow to capture maximum information about your employee. Person information in the sense employee home address, phone numbers, email IDs, passports, visas, citizenship, and employee contacts. Home address, it's taking a couple of minutes time to retrieve the data. You can see that phone number, email information, marital status, and highest education level, citizenship, visa information, passport information, This is all data we can capture. Okay, so context information also we can go for capture. Here it is. Right, so let's come back. Let's go for capture employment information. And employment information will capture which business unit you are hiring employee, and what is the job name, position, grade, who is the manager, which payroll. A lot of information we can go for capture. See business unit. So in previous setup, when we were doing for non-HCM user, it was asking only the legal employer and business unit, but now it is asking a lot of options. See, all this comes in human capital management. Provision period, tax reporting unit, time and labor, location wise, how many people are headcount is there, like this. And we can also capture the salary information for this employee, compensation, other benefits. Here, like this. I'm just going ahead with without salary. Let's go for complete this option here. This is HCM user, nothing but you are hiring an employee in HCM, human capital management, and then you are going to create a user account for that. So this employee also can log in and perform the transactions, depends on the roles and depends on the access which we have given to the employee. Okay, so this is how we can go for configure the users in Fusion applications. So mainly two users will be there, implementation user and transactional users. Again, transactional users are two things, HCM user and non-HCM user. So whenever we are working as a functional consultant or technical consultant, what we will do, we call it as a implementation users. And once we work as an implementation user and do the setups, do some development or extensions or personalizations, then how will you test it? Transactional user has to log in, nothing but employee should log in and he has to perform the transaction and check that particular functionality, whatever we have configured or implemented or customized is working or not. Okay, so now here the request has completed successfully. Ranjit Kumar is the employee name. Obviously user account will be created that we are supposed to check in security console. So any user account, finally we have to come back here and go to users tab here and search for user. Kumar.Ranjit. That's the username system has taken. Now we can see that associated worker information here. So this is how we can find the user account here. Okay. So when you are practicing and when we are working in the project, we'll find the different user accounts like this. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe for our YouTube channel. If your friends or colleagues are there, ask them to subscribe to get all Oracle related new features and errors and bug fixing and a lot of placements and jobs and freelancing consulting information. Thank you.